action. Lord, especially in these very challenging times when our faith in you is being put to the test, we pray that all the people of this nation, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, would see the need to acknowledge you fully in their lives and to trust you more. We pray this afternoon in a special way for this educational institution, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, which was established 33 years ago to help advance the development of our people on these two lovely islands. We thank you for taking this college from its small beginnings to where we are presently, as we keep on forging ahead in your strength towards even greater things to come. Lord, we express our profound gratitude and appreciation for the vision of the founders, all of whom, especially Clarence Fitzroy Bryant, we happily remember and proudly celebrate once again this week, as we shall always seek to do in the future. Lord, we put this memorial service this evening, this program, in your hands, for you to guide it, for you to bless it in such a way that all those who participate therein may be truly inspiring, and that all those who experience it, both here physically and from their various locations virtually, that they all may be just as truly inspired. Honoring the past, celebrating the present, creating a sustainable future. Lord, as we contemplate the value of this theme and of the topic for today's discourse, diversification in education, a pathway to national development, we now ask for your special blessing on each presenter, on every listener and viewer, wherever they may be located, and on all those who are connected in any way with this week's activities and today's session in particular. This we pray, O Lord, with thanksgiving, in the precious name of Jesus Christ, our wonderful Savior and Lord. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your inspiring words. Good evening, Right Honorable Dr. Kennedy Simmons, First Prime Minister and living national hero of St. Kitts and Nevis. Good evening to Honorable Janelle Powell, Minister of Education, President Dr. Jacqueline Austin, President of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, Dr. Tamu Brown, lecturer, entrepreneurship and business coach and featured speaker tonight, Mrs. Sonita Daniel, CFBC librarian and chairperson of the CFBC Founders Week Committee, Mr. Kurji Stevens, president of the Student Government Association, other members of faculty and students of Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, and to everyone tuned in online, welcome. My name is Carla Astafan, a former student, a graduate of the CFBC College, and it is my privilege and pleasure on behalf of the CFBC Founders Week Committee organizing this year's Founders Week of activities on the occasion of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant 33rd anniversary to welcome you here today. We are delighted to have you join us to participate and share in this memorial lecture. Thank you for coming and for taking time from your busy schedule to be here and/or to join us online. This year, the theme is honoring the past, celebrating the present, creating a sustainable future. We are honored to have Dr. Kennedy Simmons, who will share with us on what went into the creation of this institution, which was birthed as the College of Further Education. And our esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Tamu Brown, former lecturer at CFBC, who will deliver on the topic, Diversification in Education, a Pathway to National Development. I am sure they will both bring their passion and knowledge to the fore. Be prepared and open to the ideas. Be open to be challenged, excited, and inspired. I have had the opportunity to be coached and inspired by Dr. Tamu Brown through participation in both in-person and virtual training programs. Therefore, I am as excited as you are to hear from her today. I thank you and welcome everyone once again to this memorial lecture. However, before I call upon the president of CFBC, Dr. Jacqueline Austin, to share opening remarks, let us pause for a minute of silence in remembrance, honor, and recognition of two men now deceased whose roles are forever etched in the annals of this institution, Mr. Clarence Fitzroy Bryant and Mr. Sidney Morris. Thank you. A minute is a long time, isn't it? I discovered that from walking a lot. Anyway, we now invite Dr. Jacqueline Austin, CFBC President, to the podium. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I humbly ask to adopt the established protocol. However, do allow me a moment to recognize the presence of Dr. the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Kennedy A. Simmons, our Honorable Minister of Education, the Honorable Jonelle Powell, and our keynote speaker, Dr. Tamu Brown. We are indeed proud to be celebrating this, the 33rd anniversary of the founding of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, which came about as an amalgamation of 4 previously existing institutions: the School of Nursing, the Teachers College, the Technical College, and the 6th form. Indeed, this could not have been accomplished without the contributions of our visionaries and founders. This evening, I salute the 9 leaders who preceded me as principals and/or presidents. Mrs. Dulcie Richardson, who was the first principal from 1988 to 1990. Mrs. Richardson was honored by Queen Elizabeth II in 2002 with award of the Office of the British Empire, a medal for community service and education. President Dr. Bertram Hudson Ross, the longest serving president of CFBC from 1990 to 1999. Dr. Hermia Morton Anthony, who served as president from 1999 to 2006 and returned to serve in 2011. The first president of CFBC, Dr. Hermia Anthony, she was the person who transitioned this institution from being a government entity to semi-autonomy, and she spearheaded the replacement of GCE with the Caribbean-based CAPE curricula and assessment, and she also initiated the online environment, and it was during her tenure that we introduced the associate degree, bachelor and bachelor's programs, namely bachelor's degree in nursing. I also salute today Mrs. Marilyn Rogers, 2006 to 2007. I recognize the contributions of Ms. Sonia McPhail, who served from 2007 to 2011. Dr. Frank Mills, 2009 to 2012. Dr. Eustace Esdale and Dr. Calvin Daly, 2012 and 13 respectively. And my predecessor, Dr. Ione Liebert-Willett, who served as the interim president from September 2017 to July 2018. We also recognize the work of our chairmen and chairpersons who have labored in the interests of this noble institution. Mr. Vincent Samuel, Chairman, 2015 to 2018. Reverend Damian Hughes, Chairman, 2018 to 2021. And our current chair, Dr. Susan Owen, our first female chair. We stand proudly today on the shoulders of giants who preceded us and built on the firm foundation that they have laid. I would want to highlight to you here in the audience physically and also our virtual audience that this college, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, had just 150 students in 1988. And today we boast 972 students enrolled here at the CFBC. As we continue to strive for excellence, we seek avenues and opportunities for our students. We have recently signed Memoranda of Understanding with the University of the West Indies. We refreshed with Nova Scotia Community College in Canada, Keano College also in Canada, and Chamberlain University. Just yesterday, our Minister of Education, the Honorable Jonelle Powell, opened the new Student Services Center, which will be fully equipped for our students to engage in online classes while transitioning from face-to-face education. This is but one example of our deep commitment to the holistic development of students. CFBC is offering our students, clubs, organizations, and opportunities to build their leadership skills and other competencies. We look to the future with optimism and courage that we can build a stronger CFBC, a CFBC that will continue to be resilient despite the shocks of our current environment. We have come this far, by faith. We have come this far by God's grace. I take the quote from Greta Z1, and I quote, "The future holds brightness if His will be done. Continue the efforts your zeal has begun. Let God guide you onward, sufficient each day, constantly blessing and leading the way." End quote. May God bless CFBC on this, the occasion of our 33rd anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dr. Jacqueline Austin. It is my honor now to call the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons to the podium for some remarks on the creation of the college, an overview.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Chair, thank you for your very warm welcome. And I crave your indulgence, mainly in the interest of brevity, to adopt the protocol which you so ably established. I take this opportunity to congratulate all of you, staff, students, everybody, here at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College on the celebration of Founders Week. I wish also to thank you for inviting me to be a part of today's proceedings, and more particularly, to make a few brief remarks. I am delighted and uplifted that at last someone, somewhere, has dared to finally associate the name of Sidney Earl Morris with the founding of this hallowed institution of learning. Let me state unequivocally, this college is and will always be an integral part of the legacy of Sidney Morris towards the education of the youth of our independent nation. It is surprising that his name remains documented. Sidney Morris was at heart an educator with a vision and a passion for uplifting the youth of our nation. He entered politics in 1980 out of necessity and a desire to effect change in our country. Some of the trials and tribulations which he and the rest of us endured are really not for this forum. They are better detailed in my autobiography, The Making of a National Hero. Suffice it to say that Mr. Morris came forward as a candidate for the People's Action Movement, which had been formed in 1965. It was no mean feat to unseat the St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla Labour Party, still had Anguilla in the name at that time, which had held the reins of office since adult suffrage in 1952. Then, irony of ironies, he defeated his predecessor as Minister of Education, who had served 3 consecutive terms in office. We served a shortened first term from 1980 to 1984. However, in his second term, the Honorable Sidney Morris, as Minister of Education, established and later began construction of the College of Further Education, now named the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. Mr. Morris's vision for education in St. Kitts and Nevis was not limited to the college. His vision and programs for education was written by him in the PAM Manifesto of 1980 under the heading Education Reform Policy. He listed 15 subject areas, starting with early childhood education up to university and professional courses. He documented his conviction, and I read, that good education is the master key to progress in a developing society such as ours. It is the key to nation building. On page 16 of the same document, he promises under item 5 the provision of initial programs of higher or university education for all who are able to benefit therefrom. On page 16, under the heading, the tertiary stage, a higher education, he committed to establish institutions which, along with the high school, will offer higher level of complementary adult education courses leading to university entrance and the first year course, at least, of the university degree program. The opening of this college was well documented in 1988. And on page 44 of this document, which is the year in review, St. Kitts and Nevis, 1988. This document was prepared by the Public Information Department of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis at the time, and was edited by Ms. Alison Hector, BAMA, producer, the 1988 year in review. On page 44 of this document, I read, well, the eye is not so good for this fine writing. I think I have to get some assistance. The College of Further Education began operating here on September 26th. In a special broadcast to formally open the college, Minister responsible for education, the Honorable Sidney Morris, said that the tertiary level institution was established after careful investigation, lengthy discussions, professional consultations, and detailed planning. The Honorable Minister said The official start of the institution was the first phase of the implementation of these plans. He added that it was always government's intention to establish such an educational institution, to supply trained personnel to manage and implement the social and economic development programs. The college started the 1988-89 academic year with 3 divisions. The Division of Teacher Education is the former Teachers Training College and has 58 students. The Division of Technical and Vocational Education and Management Studies replaces the St. Kitts Nevis Technical College and has 180 students. And the Division of Arts, Sciences, and General Studies comprises the 6th form at the Bastia High School and adult and continuing education classes, and has 452 students. All of the divisions will operate from their usual locations until the physical structure of the college is erected. The administrative center is located on the compound of the old Cunningham Hospital in what used to be the matron's residence. Renovation work at the center cost government $65,000. Mrs. Dulcie Richardson is the principal of the college and is being assisted by Mr. Norman Clegg, an advisor whose services were made possible through the British Development Division. And Mr. Clegg has had 20 years' experience in tertiary level education. Preliminary plans for the physical structure of the college have been completed by the Physical Planning Department, and the funding package for the college will go before the European Development Fund Board by mid-1989. The college is to be built on the old Cunningham Hospital grounds and will consist of 3 two-story buildings. One will hold 12 classrooms, another will comprise of laboratories, and the third will house administrative offices, a library, cafeteria, common room, assembly hall, and student facilities. In 1989, I continue. The 1989 Year in Review reports as follows, under the heading, College of Further Education. The 1988-89 school year was a phasing-in period for the College of Further Education. So far, the divisions of teacher education and technical and vocational education have been fully integrated into the CFE. The Division of Arts, Sciences, and General Studies is still housed at and administered from the Bastia High School 6th form. And the Division of Health Services, Health Sciences, is still in transition. In May, the CFE conducted a training needs survey to assess the types of non-academic courses which could be offered by the Department of Adult and Continuing Education. For the 2nd consecutive year, the college offered a paralegal course for persons working in private law offices and government's legal department. The course is sponsored by the Caribbean Justice Improvement Project, and 5 of the 7 students in the 1988 program passed the paralegal examinations. They have continued into the 2nd year class and hope to gain paralegal certificates at the end of this academic year. The CFE held its first graduation ceremony since its establishment in September 98 on November 29th, that's 1988, and 158 students graduated from the college at that time. 110 were students of the Division of Technical and Vocational Education and Management Studies, and 48 were students of the Division of Teacher Education. It so happened I was there at the time. Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Kennedy Simmons, announced at the graduation ceremony that he had received word from the European Economic Commission that funding had been approved for the construction of the building to house the CFE. Prime Minister Simmons cautioned the college administrators and students not to become dependent on the facilities that the new building would provide, and added that the level of work they had achieved shows that it is not the building that makes a college, but rather the students and their performance. Minister of Education, the Honorable Sidney Morris, called the graduation a landmark occasion and said that the first year of the CFE had been a challenging one for the institution. The guest speaker was Dr. Bevis Peters, Acting Director of the Office of University Services of the University of the West Indies. Dr. Peters said that there are now some 4,000 OECS students in tertiary level programs in the sub-region, and that by 1993, that figure will have been doubled. On page 45 of the same 1989 year in review, under the heading, UWIDITE Center officially opened. The University of the West Indies Distance Teaching Experiment Facility in St. Kitts was officially opened on December 8th. The center in St. Kitts was opened simultaneously with the center in St. Vincent using a satellite link-up system. Minister of Education, the Honorable Sidney Morris, said it was an honor that the Federation was being admitted into this extension of the university and congratulated the university on its outreach program. The Honorable Minister added that UWIDITE will multiply and diversify the educational services of UWI to the non-campus territories. The Attorney General, the Honorable Tapley Seaton, noted that the service was inaugurated with a lecture in law and praised the success of the Part 1 UWI law programs in the Federation. These reports were documented in real time as the referenced events unfolded. Mr. Morris was a dedicated educator par excellence, serving as teacher, administrator, Minister of Education, and Deputy Prime Minister. As Minister of Education, he developed a close relationship with teachers and drew upon their wisdom and experience. This collaborative relationship, combined with his own passion for the development of our youth, inspired him to promote policies and programs which catapulted St. Kitts and Nevis into a leadership position in education in the Caribbean in the decade of the 80s and extending into the 90s. He was highly respected throughout the Caribbean as an insightful and progressive Minister of Education. The quality of his service to the youth of this country is second to none. Recognition of his service was not limited to the Caribbean. In 1986, he was elected second vice chairman of the OAS Inter-American Council for Education, Science, and Culture. The elections took place at the OAS headquarters in Washington, D.C. on September 25th, 1986, during the 17th regular meeting of the Council. Mr. Morris was nominated by the distinguished delegation of Paraguay and was elected unanimously. Of course he spoke Spanish. Back at home, his legacy is not confined to the college. He reorganized and restructured our education system from the ground up. Other Caribbean governments sent delegations here to study his early childhood education program. And he implemented his 15-point agenda right up to the level of tertiary education. Mr. Morris did not operate in isolation. He surrounded himself with a team of dedicated, experienced educators and administrators to get the job done. Early in our administration, he chose Mr. Calvin Farrier to be his permanent secretary in education. Mr. Farrier had served the previous administration and had been involved in the upgrading of the Bastia Senior School to the Bastia Junior High School. In fact, he was the first principal of that school. Mr. Farrier was with Mr. Morris when they held consultations here in St. Kitts with Mr. Leslie Robinson, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the UWI at the time, with regard to the role of the UWI in relation to the establishment and operation of our CFE. Subsequent permanent secretaries of education, including Mr. Sidney Osborne, Mrs. Patricia Hobson, Mrs. Lorna Callender, the heads and members of staff of the various institutions which were part of the beginning of the CFE, all played vital roles and made significant contributions to the establishment of the CFE. I applaud them all and thank them for their service. To all of you who continue to render dedicated service to the youth of our nation here at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, I salute you and pray that your lives will be richly blessed and that your endeavors will continue to be crowned with success. God bless you all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. The right one, excellent, Sir Kennedy Simmons. I am indeed grateful, and I'm sure everyone is, for the history you shared with us today. And for me, it was a special honor to look at you and to hear what you had to say. I haven't seen you in a very long time, and to see you so strong and delivering so ably is really made me smile this afternoon. So thank you ever so much. I really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you. I now call on Mr. Kirji Stevens, the president of the Students' Government, to share with us an introduction of our keynote speaker this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Please allow me to adopt the protocol that was so ably established. Dr. Tamu Petra Brown is the founder of an online academy, Innovative Education and Training Solutions and Coaching by Tamu. The former serves adult Caribbean learners whose traditional education pathway was interrupted. Coaching by Tamu is the entrepreneurship education component of Tamu's ventures focused on guiding female entrepreneurs to create and effectively manage scalable and innovative ventures. Her teaching and learning philosophy sits at the intersection of technology and innovation. Petra, as she is known to her peers, is passionate about incorporating technology into the teaching and learning experiences while using pedagogical techniques to encourage curiosity and novel thought. Dr. Brown served as convener for the Caribbean Examination Council's Animation and Game Design syllabus, leading a regional team to create an advanced level curriculum available to all English-speaking Caribbean schools. Coaching by TAMU is the entrepreneurship education component of TAMU's ventures, focused on guiding Caribbean female entrepreneurs to create and effectively manage high-growth, scalable, and innovative ventures. Her Mentor to Millions initiative uses action research to leverage and to lead at least 10 Caribbean women to $1 million in revenue. Dr. Brown has provided her services to regional and international entities, including the World Bank's Pitch IT Caribbean Program, Caribbean Export Development Agency, UE and UNDP, and St. Kitts and Nevis's Citizenship by Investment Funded Seed Initiative, where she served as the bootcamp manager for the multi-million-dollar initiative for the final 2 cycle. Her ventures have allowed her to positively impact the lives and livelihoods of schools in the region. Tamu received her doctorate in 2018 in technology entrepreneurship, having researched strategies that minority female founders use to receive venture capital funding for technology companies. Tamu holds a master's in information systems management, a bachelor's in management studies, a postgraduate diploma in teaching, numerous education-related certificates, and in 2020, a certificate in innovation from Universidad del Desarrollo in Chile. After a 4-stage competitive process, Tamu has also recently been appointed to the Global Advisory Board of Teachers Without Borders. Dr. Brown enjoys writing and researching for her edification. Without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Dr. Petra Brown.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Sage, can you tell me where am I to look for my virtual audience as well so we can keep them engaged? Straight ahead? I know, but camera? Okay. Well, first I'd like to adopt the protocol so ably established, and I'd like to beg your grace because it is no easy feat speaking after a living legend, an excellent orator, and so I beg your grace, okay? So we begin. Are we ready? Yes? We're engaged? That's the teacher in me. So, discourse on national development in the absence of a conversation and strategic planning predicated on a fit-for-purpose, evidence-based, agile, and inventive education ecosystem is imprudent. I thank the leadership of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College for selecting me to deliver this address. As a former faculty member, I am thrilled to continue to contribute in this manner. Thank you, Dr. Austin and Ms. Daniel, for inviting me home. So now to the examination of the topic of diversification in education, a pathway to national development. I opine on this topic all the time with colleagues in the field, friends, and anyone who would provide me an ear. So I am beyond eager to present on the subject in public. I am an educator, so of course, I intend to provide the contextual foundation upon which the conversation can be scaffolded. we must explore what national development means and then contemplate the elusive phraseology of diversification in education. I will begin with one of the texts written by Sir Arthur Lewis, one of the region's Nobel laureates and a pioneer of development economics, through the lens of small island states and the complexities of race and ethnicity. I use Lewis's text, The Theory of Economic Growth, as definition bedrock, not because I am naive to the fact that national development is not synonymous with economic growth, but because they are conjoined twins. The World Development Report 1999-2000, which reflected on the key lessons that have emerged from 50 years of development experience, stated that Lewis's classic 1955 study, The Theory of Economic Growth, explores the complexity of the development process. Although Lewis famously touted a model of shifting labor and industrialization as tenets of economic growth, this text, The Theory of Economic Growth, is more holistic in its embrace of the social factors that affect national development, steering away from the strictly economic bent for which he is known. There is a natural tendency to assume, Lewis opined, that things which are associated in the society we know must necessarily also be associated in all other societies. Lewis argued that national architects needed to be careful of the assumption that methods that worked in relation to the societies mainly in the European spheres, which had been successful in the past, were the only methods that could work or would work in the same way in tropical economies. In his 2005 publication, titled W. Arthur Lewis's Social Analysis and the Transformation of Tropical Economies, Mark Figueroa noted that in The Theory of Economic Growth, Lewis's chief questions were related to what he saw as the proximate causes of growth. Lewis was interested in knowing about societies that promoted the will to economize and develop appropriate institutions that fostered economic growth. In particular, he was interested in those social arrangements that enabled the development of knowledge and its application to the expansion of production, elicited savings, and applied them to the accumulation of capital, which led to migrations and rates of population growth favorable to economic expansion. Lewis also paid particular attention to the governmental institutions produced by different societies. Given the importance that Lewis attached to governmental decisions' impact on the economy, and was concerned with those social elements that were consistent with economic growth. Still, he was ultimately more concerned about what allowed a society to move onto a high growth path. He wrote, "Growth may accelerate either because new opportunities come into existence, or because institutional changes now permit opportunities to be seized which already existed, or for both reasons." Lewis also stated in his 1955 text, it may not be those at the top of the social structure who initiate change. Neither is it those who are at the bottom. It is the new men who play the most prominent part in effecting change. They come from intermediate social classes, probably near enough at the top to have some resources, some personal freedom, and some tradition of action. Those quotes come from pages 147 to 149 of the text. He closes, "It is possible for a nation to take a new turn if it is fortunate enough to have the right leadership at the right time." Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, announced, "The world economy needs a new development paradigm for the 21st century." This was September 20th, 2019, speaking at the Global Partnerships for Climate Action at the State University of New York and UWI Center. Beckles explains, and I'm quoting, "We are at the tail end of the 19th century development paradigm that was based on economic growth by all means necessary, including colonial exploitation, white supremacy, destruction of rainforests, financial institutions catering for elites, and disrespect for the environment and the poor. We all want inclusive development that is sustainable." He practically begged that learning institutions should never again support development, taking away years of progress with a skewed return to prosperity, unsurprisingly, by the developed countries. A synthesis of Dr. Ngozi's remarks tells us that national development cannot be gauged by the sole key performance indicator of economic growth. My economic training tells me that is a lagging indicator, and that as opportunities await, we need to seek the lead indicator. I submit that the lead indicator is education. Now, let us shift our critical gaze to the oft-repeated phrase, diversification in education, emblazoned everywhere in these times of the new normal. Another emblazoned phrase, right? So this concept of diversification in education has come into the social consciousness and education industry nomenclature. A search in the scholarly database for the term diversification in education yielded 17,100 studies published in just 2021. And on the topic, diversification in education and COVID-19 yielded 7,480 published studies for the same period. Suppose if even 40% of the results are directly relevant to our topic. In that case, it is indisputable that there is a hunger in the research community to find answers, which is the purpose of research. Let me hold my gaze steady here a while and question, what are our research findings on this scholarly topic in this scholarly community? Are we hoping to extrapolate the findings of studies on diverse populations to our very distinct population? I, too, am under my own gaze. I believe this is an excellent place to begin our exploration of diversification in education, a recognition that any diversification should be data-driven. But where is the data? Where is the data for our region, for our country, and for our communities? We will revisit this point. Make a note, hold me accountable. Let us keep the same pattern and define this term from the micro to the macro perspective, from the curriculum to the sector to the industry. Nigerian scholar Grace Oformo, in her 2010 work, defines curriculum diversity as the various means, content, method, resources, evaluation procedures included in the school program to produce functioning members of society. Not too exciting a definition. Where it becomes interesting is her assertion that curriculum diversification was a tool for social re-engineering. Re-engineering may sound dystopian, but education's ultimate purpose is to create learners whose outputs and contributions lend to the development of our most aspirational society. And it must be undertaken with thoughtfulness and strategic intent if it is to align with national development. Education as a social re-engineering tool and the re-education phrase is often associated with non-democratic governments, the Soviet Union, Hitler's Germany, and China, to achieve their goals of national supremacy. Despite this being the case, social re-engineering through education is not necessarily sinister, and leaders commonly use the practice to achieve their national performance indicators. Closer to home, Maurice Bishop's quest to re-engineer the Grenadian society was heavily dependent on education reform, mass literacy campaigns, and universal education. He almost succeeded. That's another lecture. A 2017 article on the World Bank's blog highlights 5 education reforms that have resulted in positive economic growth for implementing nations. The author uses learner outcomes as a proxy or as a lead indicator for economic development. Remember we had this discussion about lead and lagging? So, I outline a few. Poland delayed the tracking of learner outcomes in their systems and improved the quality of their teachers. Vietnam's education leaders focused on primary level reform, which resulted in their students' exceptional ability to apply basic mathematical skills to complex real-world problems. That is a significant skill, I would add. In Mexico, this one is interesting. The World Bank funded parent associations. The project provided training for parent advocacy to support school improvements. The interventions resulted in fewer grade repetitions, fewer failures, and fewer dropouts. These examples are models for the 360-degree view required for education diversification, from the curriculum to teacher inputs to households, from curriculum to system to nation. These examples illustrate diverse interventions based on societal needs, recognizing the role that education plays in national development driven by data. These are action research-based interventions. On August 16, 2021, Singapore's Minister of Education, Mr. Singh, at a forum for public officers remarked, "We must build diversity in our schools. In an uncertain world, diversity is key to our resilience as a country. In a hyper-competitive world, diversity is also key to alleviating the unhealthy stress of pursuing the same definition of success. We will provide our students with a diversity of schools and education pathways, a diversity of skill sets, and a diversity of perspectives and experiences. What ultimately matters is not how much our students know, but how fast they learn and how able they are to adapt to an ever-changing environment. If survival is a contest of evolution, then the best help that we can give them is the widest exposure possible to different experiences, challenges, and circumstances." I close Mr. Singh's quote. So now, for an unwavering gaze at diversification in education, a pathway to national development, I am intertwined in this topic. It sits in my core. Why? I am a teacher. I am a mother, a scholar practitioner, and of course, a member of society. I am a champion of education at the intersection of entrepreneurial mindsets, invention, creation and not consumption, and intellectual curiosity from all those involved in the teaching and learning process. I even think the phrase teaching and learning is incomplete and inadequate for the world that we uncomfortably now navigate. Instead, I advocate to learn, innovate, teach, and repeat. A never-ending cycle of new assumptions tested, perhaps modified, understood, and disseminated and applied. Anything short of that stymies any meaningful education that can contribute to national development. I have always known this. Many of my colleagues in the field have known this, but now we all know it because of our experiences managing COVID. The constant shift, understanding that learning and knowledge evolve, the constant re-evaluation and the embrace of situational fluidity should be applied as well to education. The dogged pursuit of the past is a time waster. Instead, there should be a dogged pursuit of research, a dogged pursuit of introspective and futuristic strategy, a dogged pursuit of heterogeneous and practical implementation based on school, community, and societal needs. At this point in our development, the nation is the most demographically diverse that it has ever been. Yet, as a region, we pursue education homogeneity. A diverse system for diverse learners, for diverse and complex challenges is what we require. The nation will only face more complexity as we traverse through these new times. Who will help us? It is imperative that you note that none of the discourse thus far has centered on technology, although technology has its place. We are often myopic in our view that diversification in education is synonymous with instructional technology. Technology is a tool, it is not education. It can facilitate education. But it must be wielded in the fight to keep our learners from regressing during the pandemic. Much has been written about the loss of student gains, particularly in the developing world, so I need not repeat the conversation. Instead, I seek to add 2 new perspectives to the dialogue. 1, I boldly state, it is because we strive to force the unwilling old into the petulant new that learners continue to lose. The lack of inventiveness is the culprit. So, it is evident that technology has a role in these times as we move to blended or entirely virtual learning to create the required physical and social distancing. It is the sustainable implementation that continues to challenge us. Why not blended learning with kinesthetic kits for younger students? Why not parent-teacher association assistance groups for virtual tutoring? Why not pods of learners in different virtual and physical spaces, keeping numbers small but learning varied? These are just a few of my thoughts, but where are the novel ideas and experimentation required in these times? Just as the nation's response to COVID is an all-of-society approach, the nation's response to education diversification needs to align with that call, as it is all of us who rely on education to craft and thrive in the type of society we want to live in. Second perspective. In 2020, in the throes of the pandemic, I delivered a brief session at the Caribbean Development Bank's Digital Dialogue Resilience Series on digital transformation and TVET skills-based training. At that time, I presented a model that I have created that I think illustrates why I believe we are faltering in the Caribbean region to transform and diversify our education ecosystem. I use the term ecosystem deliberately. My digital transformation model places the much documented and discussed technology resources on the perimeter. So we have infrastructure. We have online infrastructure bolstered by blockchain. I have on there extended reality. I have education training. But on the core, I present the true elements of digital transformation: design thinking, innovation, learner equity. Well, the traditional resources are there because I agree that they are essential and deserve a place in digital transformation. But at the core of the model are the resources we give scant regard to and see a dearth of evidence of in our regional educational ecosystem. We constantly, at all levels, make decisions that are not grounded in data. Why? Because perhaps we are not mining the data, or let me step back. In many cases, we are not collecting the data, at least not often the data that matters. We are not applying transformational and innovative thinking to the information we do have, nor are we engaging in design thinking. We are not engaging our households, children, learners, societies, or trading partners. We are siloed. Learner equity, in my mind, goes well beyond access. It speaks to abilities through the entire learning bell curve. It speaks to educator competence and their ability to transform the old into the new and novel effectively, and so much more that we have no time for. We can have all the access, all the tech, all the teacher training, but if we are not engaging in digital transformation based on the way that we think and strategically plan, or education diversification, then we are simply implementing digital tools. Y'all with me? Okay, good. I think it is time to close the discourse, to shift our gaze to the horizon. Educators shape communities. Educators shape nations. Educators are leaders, and a nation's leaders must shape an education paradigm that will pivot society and sustain national development. I spoke earlier of an education ecosystem because education is much more than the classroom or industry context. When considering the effect of education on national development, these non-traditional forms of education and education partners must be included in the discourse, the data collection, and the development agenda. The subject matter expert is no longer just the degreed individual. It is the content creator, the entrepreneur, the self-taught data analyst, the team member at extended reality companies. They are the new subject matter experts. The artists, the historian, the elder. Where are their roles? Where is their voice? Where are the education leaders championing socio-cultural, contextually relevant, yet globally adaptable content? We can all be creators and not solely consumers of American visuals, trauma, and curated content. Where are the patents, the papers, the accelerator labs and incubators? Where are the inventors? Where is the ecosystem? Who will shape the education ecosystem so that our nation shape shifts to transform itself into the first of the Caribbean's version of the Asian tigers? We all will have to, if we intend to ratchet up our nation's development. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, but I don't think your job is finished yet. There's an question and answer segment. So we'll open the floor for questions, which you will answer, or there may be questions for Dr. Simmons. So whatever questions, anyone has any questions at this point? Or comments? Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, all. I must be very honest. Having listened to Dr. Brown's presentation, I believe that my job as Minister of Education just got 10 times harder. I found your presentation very interesting, very relevant to our situation today, and I look forward to an opportunity to sit and discuss further with you some of your ideas. There are a number of points that stood out to me. Certainly the fact that technology is really a tool and not necessarily education. We find ourselves in a situation where remote learning means give me a device, and by having a device, my child automatically learns. That's not how it works. But I think the main point that is resonating with me is my interpretation of a suggestion that perhaps in the middle of the pandemic in which we find ourselves, it is through diversity that we can truly, properly develop our education sector, and through that development, really forge forward in terms of national development in a greater way than economic development could do. And perhaps the economic development can only come as a result of that educational transformation, and not just in a long-term way, but I believe in a more short to medium-term dispensation. And so I commend you on your comments, your thoughts, your questions, which I believe should really be asked and asked of and answered by our education management team. And so, job well done, thank you, and I really look forward to an opportunity to sit and discuss further with you.
Thank you, Honorable Janelle Powell. Do we have any other questions?
Thank you very much. I wish to thank both presenters this evening, but my question as such goes to the Right Excellent Sir Kennedy, because he did speak about the passion that Mr. Morris had for education and how he really made a difference, not just here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but also across the world. And I was curious because he said in his presentation that he surrounded himself with some movers and shakers. So I wanted to have some insight into the talent and how he was able to glean that talent and leverage it for his benefit as a minister and also as a transformational leader in the region. Thank you.
I thank the principal for that, not just a question, but that insight. Sidney Morris, as I said, he was, how do you describe a passion? How do you? Education to my, as a son, let me give you a story. Back up. When I myself got involved in politics, it was by chance, not by choice. And on the very first meeting, I was given the task of speaking about education. Meeting at the square. And if you had seen me go up on that stage, do you think the two little pamphlets I had today were nothing compared to the stack of books I went up on that stage with? Because I needed help. Morris wasn't there at that time. I think he was away studying. But in terms of, yes, I could look at the statistics on how many children were school age and how many were under 16 and how many school leavers. The basic things that if one in political office, one because you have school leavers coming out. But I didn't have that deep understanding and passion about education. When I became associated with Mr. Morris as a colleague to contest in 1980, that is when I more deeply appreciated that it went beyond the classes and the subjects and the technology, which was very little compared to now, but it went beyond those basic things. And if I were to take away one thing from him, education was not just a means of getting people to earn a better living or so on. The key thing was to get persons to want, to thirst to find out the next step, to recognize that as much as you get at this point, it only tells you that there is so much more for you to get, and to raise within you that awareness and that interest and that drive to go further. So that is how I would describe the effect that, or the influence that I received on the question of education and brought from Mr. Sidney Morris. It wasn't just classrooms. Yes, you had to prepare classrooms, get teachers, etc. Those are the building blocks. Those are the basic things. But the key thing was to get persons to thirst for more knowledge and to move on to the next step. I hope I have been helpful there.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Dr. Brown, I think I have a question or a comment. How do you see parents and others, you talked of historians, artists, and so on, how do you see them playing a role in the diversification?
You know, I see the roles as diverse ones. And there's a lot of research that speaks to two things. First, the success of children with parental involvement. This is research that we all know. But I think that we need to redefine what parental involvement is. I was really intrigued by that intervention by the World Bank with Mexico, and the use of parent-teacher associations. And as one of my novel ideas, I spoke about parent-teacher associations providing support. It could be tutoring support. It can be, if you have professionals, mental health support. Because with the thrust for national development, a nation never has enough tangible resources, right, to do all the things that are required for development. But our resources lie within our people. And so not every child is going to come from a home that has an involved parent. And so if you have groups of parents, it's this all of society approach, right? If you have groups of parents that provide different types of support for the diverse needs of learners, then I think that is a move, a step in the right direction. There's other research about the importance of mentorship. And I believe that we often overlook who could be mentors. And even as a teacher in your classroom, when you're bringing somebody to speak, you never bring in the historian. You never bring in the creative artist. You never bring in the elder. And the reason is because we do not have a diversified view of what it means to be successful, and we do not have a diversified view of where knowledge can come from. And when we approach things this way, and I have been guilty as well, we marginalize the students who need diverse models. And so the answer to the question is that everyone has a different and diverse role to play.
Thank you. Dr. James.
Yes, good evening, everyone. First, I must say that I was truly enlightened by the presentation by the Right Excellent and the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons. I am so happy for that information. I really learned a lot, and we all did. My question goes to Dr. Brown, and I must say, I must comment that your presentation tonight, it's a huge challenge to all of us, you know, and I just hope that we are up to the challenge. But you mentioned a lot of things, but one of the things I want to point to, you mentioned that we as leaders in education should not be, that we should not allow national development basically to be we should not approach national development as a means, how did it go? I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. A national development for us should not be happen by any means, by any means necessary. I think that's the term that you used. But when we look at the contribution of education to national development, which we know is critical, is very, very huge. How can education or diversification in education happen when there are so many other things that need to be considered, hindrances, so many things that education has to depend on? For example, we know that the education sector is not a significant generator of revenue, right? But yet, education, you know, requires a huge proportion of the national budget. So funding is critical in terms of whatever diversification we want to achieve in education. So when you say it should not be by any means necessary, maybe you need to explain that a little bit more, because we are so dependent on so many things, you know, not just nationally, but, you know, beyond the nation. So I would like some further clarification on that, if you don't mind.
Thank you to my colleague. That is such a question to unpack. So let me unpack it piece by piece. Now, it was Professor Sir Hilary Blackbuckles who said, it was his words that I echoed. However, there are some things that you indicated that I think we need to shift away from. One, education is not a revenue earner, but it can be. Education does not generate revenue, but there are so many other things in our society that do not generate revenue, right? And so I think that it is a national shift in perspective that is required. Yeah? And I think that if education outcomes were somehow aligned with figures, Minister, I don't know how you'll do this, but go with me down the road there. Go with me. People don't value what isn't measured in tangible terms and in revenue terms. And if we can somehow create a formula for diverse learner outcomes that aligns with accounting revenue-based theory, I think if you were able to point to what the economic impact of X number of learners learning X trade would equal in X years, I think that would provide a distinct and different look at how important education is in terms of contribution. So maybe that's a way, right? I don't know. Anybody has any thoughts? You all leaving me out here in the wind?
Yes, I completely concur with Dr. Brown on this one, Dr. James, because the indirect, if you're looking at the gross domestic product and so on, if we are going into the economics of it, then we need productive citizens. We need all our citizens engaged in the production in terms of the economic outcomes for us to realize a high economic performance. So I concur with her. If we had a formula, and I'm sure that the economists do, to measure the contribution, that is why we say in our region, in the CARICOM and Caribbean region, that our people are our greatest resource, because without skilled professionals, without persons who are highly trained, how are we going to respond to the economic challenges? How are we going to respond to our socio-economic challenges, to the challenges within our societies? If our persons are not trained, how do we attract investment to our region? So we see the value. There's no question, I think, Dr. Tamu, that education has significant value. Without the teacher, how do we train the doctor, the lawyer, the nurse? How? How will we have these skilled professionals if we don't have teachers equipping and empowering our young people, our future generations, to make a contribution to our societies? So I think the point is very well made. Thank you.
Okay, I think Honorable Jonelle Powell would like to say a few words.
Just to also jump on that last point, and to say that the value of education can be looked at in two ways. It can be looked at from an incentivized perspective in terms of the greater education one gets, you would expect a greater yield financially in terms of your ability to earn as an incentive. But again, to piggyback on the point just made, in the absence of a certain cadre or level of educated persons in varying positions, what then is the expense to the country to fill that gap, to fill that role, to bring in specialists and persons from outside? You see a lot of it as a result of brain drain when you have our educated persons migrating to North America, Europe, wherever, and the expense of both public and private sectors in terms of having to bring in persons to fill those gaps. And so I think those are really factors where you can certainly put a value on education.
Thank you, Honorable Jonelle Powell. A few more words. Thank you.
During, I think it was in the response to the question, Dr. Brown spoke of the associations of parents and so on. And it caused me to have a little chuckle, because although it's a very modern concept, it reminded me of my days growing up in primary school that indeed and in fact, we didn't have an association, but the community of parents took very seriously the control and upbringing of all the children, whether their parents, their father was priest or pauper. And for us, people took it seriously to see how the children conducted themselves and what they did. But as the societies have become more affluent, I think people have become more focused on their own issues, and we kind of sort of lost that community involvement, right? Which I think it's unfortunate in a sense. And we're trying to get back there now in a formal way by forming associations and so on to do it. In my school in those days, we had a class called moral instruction, right? Duty, honesty, punctuality, those things. An actual class taught by a teacher, right? And it didn't matter whether your father was the rum shop owner who had a lot of money, right? Or that you were actually the son of a pauper. Well, we're all boys, so that is, I'm not sexist, but we're all boys. That's why I'm talking about boys' school. Boys' schools in those days. But it didn't matter. In that classroom was a diversity of boys, of students. But they were all exposed to that teaching. Whether they got it at home, didn't matter. They weren't singled. Those who got it at home weren't singled out from those who didn't. And I think, though, that the fact that that was available to that cross-section was quite important. So I commend you on coming back to the idea in a different way. But it was, and it's good sometimes when we see that people are the same, have been the same down through centuries, and we go right back there, and we find that some of the approaches were so useful that we are going right back to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Kennedy Simmons. We have some comments coming from online. Dr. Susan Sarah Owen says, excellent, thought-provoking lecture. Please extend my gratitude to Dr. Brown. And we have a question, where does STEM or STEAM program fit with the new thinking in education?
I don't think STEAM is lost. I think all education moving forward would have components of STEAM. And so STEAM is an acronym that is, it's popular to say, and it's been commercialized in America, right? America is good at commercializing things and making things snappy. But we do have STEAM in schools. We have science, we have tech. We can probably improve on our engineering, but in science class, when you're making models, etc., that is engineering at its basic form. We have arts, we have math. So it is not that we do not have STEAM. It is how do we perhaps have learners apply their STEAM knowledge to world problems, community problems. And of course, we can always improve in terms of our curriculum, the way that we teach and learn STEAM, but STEAM is not absent from what we do. And if you have a child in school, you would have helped them make many dollhouses, many models, all these things. And, STEAM, we have to get away from the idea that everything is taught in the classroom, right? And so STEAM is when your children go online and learn. STEAM is when they are modeling robots from YouTube. The teacher is not always in the classroom. And so I think that if we continue to embrace the idea of diversity in education and educators, then we would see that the road is not as steep as we think that it is.
Thank you. We have one more question. Okay, I think that'll be the last question. Thank you.
Yeah, this question is for His Excellency. Yes, Dr. Simmons. I just actually want to kind of connect the creation of the college, which you presented, with diversification in education, which Brown connected, but I'm going to address the question to you. So at this stage of the game, when you consider what both Sidney Morris and Clarence Fitzroy Bryant envisioned, or any of the other founders or visionaries for that matter, but those two in particular, is there anything that, as you would have seen, that they had envisioned that you're seeing now that we still need to move towards, that has not yet been accomplished, that we still need to move towards at this stage of the game?
That is an interesting question for the expert thinking. For somebody like me, I think in terms of we've reached, in a sense, the zenith of tertiary education. And having reached there, right, for me, as a layperson, all it needs now for us to expand, be more all-embracing, get with modern times and to deal with issues of today, right? And make the call. I mean, you only have to watch the news and you see all that you need to be getting on. Maybe our students can work out something that could help with climate change and stop hurricanes and so on. I mean, it's limitless. So we've reached the point which I think, and it seems to me from the documentation that I have seen, we've reached where the founders intended to reach. But having reached there, it's like sailing. There's the horizons out there. You get on a ship and you never reach it. The further you go, the further it goes away from you. So we're at the point now where we just got to keep sailing and addressing issues of today and learning to do them better and understand the processes that are affecting us more and more today.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I know we have a lot on our plate. We've been given history, we've been given all that went on in the forming of this great institution. We've been given a challenge in education, in the way forward. And so I think this is a lot that our Honorable Powell will now have on his plate, and I'm sure he will pull as many people together for us to move to the next stage. At this time, I'd like to call Miss Chidi Liebert-Edwards to the podium as she will present tokens to our speakers this evening. She is the Vice President of Finance and Administrative Affairs here at CFBC.
Good evening, everyone. allow me to adopt the protocol that has already been established. Dr. The Right Excellent. Ladies first, sorry. Okay, ladies first, I'm sorry, Ms. Brown. Okay, Tamu. Dr. Tamu Petra Brown, classmate. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for delivering the keynote address. We can assure you, you have left us quite enlightened on the diversification in education. We want to thank you again for coming out this evening. Everyone has been quite informed. Thank you. Please accept this token of our appreciation. Sorry.
You're fully loaded.
Fully loaded. We'll certainly do that. Okay. Dr. The Right Excellent and the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons, we want to thank you for accepting our invitation on such a short notice, for delivering such an excellent presentation on the history of the college. As my colleague has said, you have left us enlightened. We have learned quite a lot on the history of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College. Please accept this token, the small token of our appreciation for having you here with us today. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now call on Mrs. Sonita Daniel, Chair of the Founders Week Committee, to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Astafan. In everything, as the good book says, we must give thanks. So on behalf of the Founders Week Committee and the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College in general, it is my task to give the vote of thanks. I express lots of gratitude, appreciation, and respect for our distinguished speakers for sparing their invaluable time today to address us on this occasion of our second annual memorial lecture as part of our 2021 Founders Week observance. Thank you, Dr. The Right Excellent and the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons, for your comprehensive address on the establishment of the college and the legacy and work of Mr. Sidney Morris, who spearheaded the institution and Minister of Education at the time. Thank you very much for the comprehensive work, your comprehensive overview, and I realize I have to go in search of that document. The year in review, 1988 and 1989. And the making of a national hero. This day will be remembered as a milestone in the history of the CFBC to have, I think for the first time, the only living national hero of St. Kitts and Nevis to grace us with your presence at this important event. an event which forms part of the celebration of the establishment of our only indigenous tertiary level institutions, which happened when you were the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. Your very presence in today's program is a reflection of the importance that you attach to the establishment of the college 33 years ago. Dr. Brown, I must mention a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for your efforts today in expounding on the topic, the diversification in education, a pathway to national development. Thank you for enlightening us with your very commendable, well-researched, insightful, stimulating, and challenging talk on this very important topic. Already, I see you have cut out new work for our Minister of Education, and I think he will in turn have new consultations for you. Your presence here today with us speaks volume, because even though you have gone on to greener pastures, you willingly accepted, you were very, excited in coming, and I see your continued commitment to this institution which you have served for many years. And please know that we'll continue to reach out to you. Thank you very much for that excellent presentation today, and we hope that we can get a copy of it so we can include in the research databases of this institution. Let us put our hands together. Thank you both for a very valuable experience this evening. A big thank you is expressed to Ms. Abigail O'Flaherty, the student, for so melodiously rendering the national anthem, Dr. Huon James for invoking God's presence in this evening's event, Mr. Kurgis Stevens, President and Student Government of the Student Government Association and student representative on the Board of Governors for introducing our keynote speaker. Let us give them a round of applause. A hearty thank you to Ms. Novelette Benjamin, Administrative Assistant in the President's Office, for her hard work, dedication, long hours to provide administrative support for this event, and also Ms. Kemi Francois for their overall support. Let us give them a rousing round of applause for their hard work and commitment. I also extend my thanks to the CFBC Maintenance Department and janitors for its logistical support of this event. Let us give them a round of applause. I would like to place on record my hearty thank you to Ms. Carla Astafan for not only so ably chairing this event, but her invaluable efforts in its organization. Thank you, Ms. Astafan, for your dedication and motivation to the organization of this memorial lecture. As an alumna, we will continue to tap on your talent and resources. We wish to thank the Potter's House for its generous donation of the gift to the keynote speaker. Thank you, President Austin, for your opening remarks and as you saluted the work of those leaders who came before you. We want to thank you also for your commitment to this week's observance towards its organization, sharing ideas, and ensuring that it becomes a reality. I want to thank you for your support. For technical support provided by the IT department in the person of Mr. Damian Hobson, whom I call everybody's first responder, and it's assisted by Mr. Jalen Monzak of the CFBC Library. Thank you both for technical support to this event this evening. Mr. Kadim Wallace, photographer from the SKNIS department, thank you for coming out to provide documentation. To Ms. Chidi Liberd Edwards, Vice President of Finance and Administrative Affairs, thank you for presenting the gifts to our speakers. Minister, Honorable General Powell, Minister of Education, I want to say a hearty thank you for gracing us with your presence this evening. You were here for our first lecture last year, and you're back this year, and I'm so pleased because it shows that your continued support for what we are doing here at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College. It means a lot to us to have you here with us today. Let us give him a round of applause. And to you all live audience, I want to say thank you for your presence. Thank you for the feedback, for the questions, and our online audience. We want to say thanks to everyone. This event, which was supposed to be face-to-face, had to transition to virtual mode because of the ongoing global health pandemic. And so I want to say to our online viewers and to you, a hearty thank you for your presence, for your support, and making this event a reality. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling months ago, and I wish to acknowledge my gratitude to the Founders Week Committee for the support and commitment, to the planning of this week-long observance. Thank you for your involvement and the sharing of ideas to make this week a reality. I think it's the first time we are having a full week of activities, and we want to express our thanks and appreciation to the Founders Week Committee. Our week continues tomorrow with the CFBC Giving Day. Starting tomorrow and running until the 30th of November 2021, you have an opportunity to donate in cash and in kind to the college towards developmental projects to support teaching, learning, and research. As I listened to Dr. Simmons, Sir Kennedy Simmons, in your last question, and I said we can do with funds to support research in the college so that colleges are known for research. And so we have to definitely increase our research capacity. And I think, having the CFBC Giving Day, tomorrow will be our first day. We are hoping that it will be an annual event, so we will not only ask our friends and our well-wishers out there locally and in the diaspora. We want to be able to contribute towards teaching, learning, and research, expanding research, because that research is what colleges are known for. So let us do that in St. Kitts and Nevis. Let us lead the way in research. We have on Friday, October 1st, a panel discussion on the topic, A Sustainable Future for CFBC Demands a Transition to Hybrid Education. This event will be streamed live on the college's YouTube channel. We want to encourage everyone to tune in and to be part of this event. On Thursday, September 30th, our students will be involved in a scavenger hunt for history. This promises to be a time of learning and fun. And I know that Governor Curtis Stevens, he, along with Director Samantha Fox, they are working hard towards this event, and so that we can have something for our students and for our young people. Because this week is about everyone, students, leaders, administrators, the visionaries. We still have we are pleased we still have Sir Kennedy with us, for alumni, for everyone, the whole of St. Kitts and Nevis, and not just living here, but those in the diaspora. So let us all commit ourselves to this exercise. To all those who are involved in the organization of this event, just in case I forget anyone, it's not intentional, I want to say a double portion of thank you. Let us give ourselves a round of applause.
I take this opportunity to present for the library the 1989 year in review. I'm going to dig in my archives, and if I come up with the other one, I'll also get it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons. We are happy to add this to our collection so that, you know, they say as a people, you have to know your history. Same way as an institution, we have to know our history. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, all good things do come to an end. So at this point, we adjourn, and we do have refreshments for you. So have a wonderful and blessed what's left of the rest of today, and thank you once again. That's it.